Welcome to Paranormal or Reality. On today's video, we explore calls from beyond the grave, when a voicemail can be more than you expect. Then we have the tale of the Smile Man, who loves to appear out of thin air. Lastly, we investigate a strange country road, where images are closer than you think. Now make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Let's begin. Story 1. I once got a call from my own office number at 2 a.m. I was asleep, and the call woke me up. I picked up. There was this heavy breathing that lasted for about 10 seconds. I couldn't sleep after that. Next day, I shared it with my colleagues, and one of them suggested to check CCTV footage. We went down to building security office. They had about 1 hour of feed missing between 1:43 a.m. to 2:58 a.m. from the camera that covered my cabin. It happened about 3 years back, but still freaks me out. I always keep my phone on silent before going to bed now. Story 2. My mom had died in December of 2014, but in the spring of 2015 I got a text message from her. I was with my friend in the car, and it popped up Mom on my phone. It was one of those inspirational messages in the form of a meme. I'm glad she was there to witness that. We had disconnected her phone a few weeks after she passed. I tried to call the number and it was not in service. It was very strange. I had that text on my phone for years until I got a new phone, and it was lost. Story 3. I was in the living room in my house. My mom was doing something in her room. My grandpa had passed in mid-November, and my mom kept his phone. She left her phone on the couch next to me when it rang, and it flashed my grandpa's name on the screen. I ran to my mom and showed her the phone. She goes over to his phone to see it calling her. It hung up just as she picked it up. Story 4. This will age me a bit, but a good family friend who often had seizures. Unfortunately had one while driving. He crashed into a swamp and passed away. We were running late to his funeral when my father's pager went off. It was from this friend's house number. He was a single man that lived alone. Spooked us a bit as everyone that could have sent the page was already at the funeral. Never figured out a good explanation. Just figured he was mad we were late. Story 5. So I live in a home that is reportedly haunted. I've had a number of unusual experiences. I have a spare bedroom that I have old Victorian furniture and a number of antiques. I brought in an old phone from my parents' house. It has no dial. It was made during the time you would connect to an operator who would connect you. It has a cloth cord and sits on an antique end table. One night, it was late, probably around 3 a.m. I was in a deep sleep when I heard in the other room a telephone ring. An old ring. It woke me up. I got up and went into the room cautiously to pick up the receiver, and I heard nothing on the other end. The ring was unmistakable. When I was about 16 years old, I had a strange occurrence that I still think about time to time, and I still cannot explain it. Growing up, I lived in South Texas where the summers are brutal. The temps easily hit 100 degrees every day from June through August. Our AC was always a problem. It was only a matter of time before it broke. It was an early evening one hot day when it finally did. My parents couldn't afford or find an emergency repairman to come fix it, so they decided we would go to a hotel. I remember talking to my girlfriend on the landline. This was just before cell phones became mainstream. I told her I wouldn't be able to talk to her because we were leaving for a hotel. I had no idea which one we were going to. I just knew we weren't going to stay at home in the heat. We ended up at one of the oldest motels in town. I'm talking damn near historic. It was single level and had outdated carpets, curtains, furniture, you name it. It was certainly a vibe. Once we settled into our room, we were divided. My parents on one bed, and my two younger brothers and I in another. I don't remember what time it was, but we were all on the verge, or just about to fall asleep when the phone rang. I'm guessing between 11 p.m. or midnight. It woke us all up, my mom answered. I heard a startled sound in her voice say, "No, he's not." Her voice changed to a more aggressive tone. She exclaimed, "He's not here," and hung up the phone. She asked if I told anyone where we had gone to. I told her I had not. Keep in mind, I didn't even know what hotel we were going to. It wasn't a chain hotel at all for me to even guess. Additionally, I wouldn't have known what room we were in. The room wasn't in my name. My mom and I don't even share the same last name. I had no cell phone because it wasn't a thing. I was completely anonymous to anyone there. She told me about the person on the other line, sounded like a male trying to sound like a female, asking if I was there, and if they could talk to me. It still creeps me out to this day. I have no idea who or what it could have been. I had just graduated from the police academy. This was one of the first calls I had ever went on. We received a call that a woman woke up to find a man in her house and was screaming over the line to dispatch. When we arrive on scene, the woman has her baby in her arms with a kitchen knife by her side standing next to their vehicle. She's very shaken up and advised us that she had woken up from a nap on the couch and seen that the basement light was on. She advised that she never leaves it on and keeps the door locked so her baby couldn't fall down the steps. She stated she went to the door, opened it up, and seen a white male in a t-shirt standing at the bottom of the steps. She first said he was standing there, looking at her with a blank stare on his face. She said he then smiled from ear to ear, reached his hand up to turn off the light from the bottom of the steps. She then slammed the door, locked it, grabbed a knife, and her baby then called 911. We start sweeping the house, 2 officers upstairs and me, my FTO, field training officer, goes downstairs to the basement. We find no one down there. The only door leading outside is locked from the inside. We checked all doors, and they are all locked from the inside. Only way of escaping is from the door the women left out of. We go to tell her, when she beginning screaming and crying, no, he's still in there. He has not left the house. We go back in and do one more sweep. We still can't find a sign of anyone or anything in the house. We tell her and she continues to freak out. We escort her inside to get some items. She leaves to go to a motel room for the night. Husband was working out of town. I patrol the area often, about a week after we see a for sale sign on the house. The house was an older one but was renovated. Even though we couldn't find anything, still to this day I believe that she's seen something. I spent my early 20s traveling a lot. I worked part-time with an imported car company that did shows all over the South. Several times a year I would drive from Florida to Kentucky, Tennessee, to Georgia, and all over the place. Often on these trips I would end up taking some strange country roads to avoid highways early in the morning. On the worst drive of my life, 3 things happened that I can't explain. The first happened around 1 a.m., when my GPS tells me to take the most sudden exit onto a side road off the interstate. It's nothing but farmland. My GPS swears it's a shortcut. I'm cruising for 5 minutes or so when an old Mustang pulled up behind me, flashing their lights. They rode my bumper for about 15 minutes, but there was nowhere to pull off in the middle of all this countryside. The car revved up. I thought they were finally going to pass me, being as there was no oncoming traffic. We were the only ones on the road for miles, but the car never passed me. I physically turned my head to check my blind spot, and the car was gone. There was no turnoff or area for them to have pulled over. It just straight up disappeared. When I got back onto the interstate, 30 minutes had passed, but I was right back at the same exit I had taken to get off. I had been on a long, straight, dark road for 30 minutes to end up exactly where I had started. A couple hour pass. I'm now 10 hours into my drive with only 2 hours from my home. I turn off the interstate onto a county road that leads to the highway that my house is on. It was a local shortcut I had taken many times before. It was only 2 cities over from my town. It was a little after 3 a.m. I go for a cigarette to keep me awake for the last leg of the ride. When my lighter runs out, as I'm fixing to put my cigarette back in the pack, I pass a poorly lit gas station. Perfect, I said. I pulled into the parking lot and decided to fill up. While I'm at the pump, I notice inside there are 2 people. An older-looking woman with a cowboy hat, who was at the register, and a large man in overalls in one of the aisles. They're facing each other like they're in a conversation, but neither of them is moving. I make my way cautiously inside and approach the register looking for a lighter. I didn't see any, so I asked the woman if they had any. She looked at me like I was from Mars. I tried to explain I just wanted a lighter for my cigarettes. She goes, "Oh, I have matches if that's what you're looking for." She hands me a box of matches and doesn't charge me for them. I thank her, then turn to leave, when I realize the man in overalls still hasn't moved, but I can feel him watching me. I'm 19 or 20 years old, and 125 pounds soaking wet at this point in my life. The hair on the back of my neck is standing straight up. My brain is yelling at me to get the hell out of there. I quickly made it to my car, and the exact moment I turn on my engine, every light in that gas station turns off. Inside, outside, the gas pump area, and the street light. It's pitch black except for my headlights. My tires squealed as I drove out of that parking lot so fast. I kept that box of matches for years to solidify in my mind that that experience actually happened. Every time I went back on that county road, I searched for that gas station, but never saw it again. At this point, I'm 45 minutes away from the state line and an hour from my comfy bed. I'm freaked out and beyond exhausted. I had been up for 2 days. I could have gone cross-eyed staring at the road for so long. I'm still on the same road, but I'm a long way from the gas station. I'm still trying to get it out of my mind. When all of a sudden, I see blue lights behind me. Now, my father was a police officer for 26 years. I remember the year police cars went from the old-school rotations lights to the new LED bar lights. This hellacious road trip was probably around 2016, and behind me was an old-school rotating light car. It was too dark to see what kind of car it was. I just saw blue. I luckily had a friend who was a sheriff deputy a couple cities over, so I called him, knowing he worked night shifts and would still be awake. I asked him if he knew of any departments that still used these old lights. He told me no one in the entire state has them. He told me to keep driving until I saw a public spot to pull over, but absolutely don't stop on the dark side of the road. I drove for a solid 30 minutes, keeping my friend on the phone with me, the blue lights trailing behind me the whole way. I finally hit the crossroad where the county road meets the highway. I'm almost 20 minutes from my house. I pulled into a very well-lit gas station at the intersection. It was a gas station that I stopped at almost daily on my way to work and felt very comfortable at. The blue lights behind me suddenly cut off. Then the car sped off too fast for me to get the license plate or a good description. I went inside the gas station, bought a Red Bull and a pack of smokes from the cashier, whose familiar face and friendly smile felt like a warm welcome back to reality. I got home that morning. I checked all my doors several times before falling asleep. Ever since I quit traveling with the car show, I hate driving by myself. I always bring a friend or my dog on long road trips. No matter what the GPS says, I stay on the highways or interstates. I have only told this story to 2 or 3 people over the years, in fear of people not believing me. I still swear I fell into a time warp, or maybe the Twilight Zone. I'm now married to my police officer friend. He very clearly remembers that night, as he was on the phone with me several times throughout this experience. We've only talked about it once. Thanks for tuning in. Watch another video if you dare.